Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross and Marilou Tyler. Picture this. You're the founder and CEO of your own company. You've just raised $5 million in venture capital. You've got 50 employees who believe in your vision, and you're riding high, feeling unstoppable. This is the dream you've been chasing. Then everything falls apart. The money disappears. The market shifts. Your dream doesn't just fade. It crashes and burns spectacularly. And as the leader, you feel like you've personally crushed the dreams of every single person who believed in you. This isn't just another business failure on paper. This cuts deep. So deep that you retreat from the world, becoming a hermit, spending Friday nights drinking vodka and losing yourself in computer games, desperately trying to numb the pain. This was Aaron Ross's reality. Back in 2001, his company, leaseexchange.com, had collapsed. He went from CEO to unemployed overnight, his confidence completely shattered. But here's where the story gets interesting. What if that crushing failure was actually the best thing that ever happened to him? What if that moment of total defeat planted the seed for a sales system that would eventually generate over $100 million in new revenue for one of the fastest-growing companies in the world, Salesforce.com. This is a story about humility, starting over from scratch and discovering a secret that would completely flip the sales world upside down. After his company failed, Aaron did something most former CEOs would never even consider. He checked his ego at the door and took the most junior sales role he could find at Salesforce.com, answering the 1 to 800 number for just $50,000 a year. He went from being the boss to being the guy who calls you back after you fill out a form on a website. Why would he do that? Because he was determined to learn a lesson he'd completely missed the first time around. He didn't just want to create revenue anymore, he wanted to create predictable revenue. He wanted to build a machine that worked like clockwork. Today we're going to uncover the blueprint for that machine. This isn't just another book about sales tactics. It's a guide to building a system that generates a predictable flow of new customers, month after month, without the stress and uncertainty. By the end of our time together, you'll understand the simple yet profound principles that transformed Salesforce.com into a sales powerhouse, and have since helped thousands of other businesses do the same. This is the story of how to stop guessing, stop hoping, and start building a future you can actually count on. This is the story of predictable revenue. To really understand the genius behind this system, we need to go back to that moment when Aaron Ross was sitting at his desk at Salesforce.com. He was hired to help the company sell to huge, enterprise-level clients. But there was a massive problem looming. The company had just hired a team of high-priced, experienced field salespeople, the classic feet-on-the-street types. But these sales pros were starving. They had nothing to do, their Rolodexes were useless, and the leads coming in from marketing were mostly from small businesses, not the big fish they were hired to catch. The company was completely stuck. The executives and the board were making a classic, painful mistake that companies still make every single day. They thought the answer to more revenue was simply to hire more salespeople and tell them to work harder. They believed that if you just threw enough experienced salespeople at a territory, they would magically find new business through sheer force of will and a ton of cold calls. But Aaron quickly discovered something that would become the foundation of his entire philosophy. The old way of selling was completely broken. He tried making traditional cold calls himself and found it utterly miserable and wildly ineffective. The people he called hated it, he hated it, and it produced almost no results. He said it was like trying to bail water out of a sinking boat faster, instead of just fixing the leak. The problem wasn't a lack of effort. The problem was the entire approach. This is a feeling we all understand, even if we've never been in sales. It's that feeling of walking on hot coals. You're stressed, you're uncertain, you're working harder and harder but not getting the results you desperately want. You're stuck in a place of frantic, unpredictable effort. The book paints this vivid picture of a company's growth moving from stage A, which is easy, organic growth from the founder's connections, to stage C, which is proactive, predictable growth. But stuck in between is stage B, the hot coals. Getting through that painful middle part is what this entire book is about. The core insight, the leak in the boat that Aaron discovered was this. In a modern sales organization, salespeople don't cause growth, they fulfill it. Take a moment to let that sink in. It's a huge shift in thinking. The real engine of growth isn't the person who closes the deal. The real engine is the system that generates a predictable flow of qualified leads for that person to close. If you want predictable revenue, you first need predictable lead generation. That became his obsession. He threw out all the old sales books from the 1980s and decided to start completely from scratch. He was an outsider, with no preconceived notions of how things should be done. And in his desperation to find a better way, he tried an experiment. He realized that the biggest bottleneck in selling to large companies wasn't trying to convince the decision-maker. It was just finding the right person to talk to in the first place. These big companies were like impenetrable fortresses. So he had an idea. What if, instead of trying to sell, he just asked for help? On a Friday afternoon, he wrote 2 different mass emails. The first was a classic salesy email. Do you have these problems? We have the solution. The second was something completely different. It was short, it was sweet, it was plain text with no fancy graphics, and it had a single, simple purpose. It didn't try to sell anything. It just asked for a referral to the right person at the company. He sent 100 of the classic sales emails to a list of top executives, and he sent 100 of the short and sweet referral emails to a similar list. The next morning, he checked his inbox. The results were absolutely stunning. The response rate for the salesy email? 0, not a single reply. The response rate for the short, sweet referral email? 10%. He had 10 replies sitting in his inbox from C-level and VP-level executives at Fortune 5,000 companies, and many of them were positive, happily referring him to the exact person he needed to talk to. This was the aha moment. This was the birth of what he would later call cold calling 2.0, a system for prospecting into cold accounts that, ironically, involves no cold calling at all. A traditional cold call is calling someone who doesn't know you and isn't expecting your call. With this new method, by the time you pick up the phone, the person on the other end has been referred to you by their boss or colleague. They are expecting your call. The entire dynamic shifts from an unwelcome interruption to a helpful, welcome conversation. With this one simple breakthrough, Aaron increased his own results by 500% in a single month. He had discovered the key to unlocking the fortress. But a single breakthrough isn't a system. It's not a machine. The real work was turning this brilliant idea into a repeatable, scalable process that anyone could follow to get predictable results. And that brings us to the most important structural idea in the entire book, specialization. Think about a car factory. You don't have one person who builds the entire car from start to finish. That would be incredibly inefficient. Instead, you have an assembly line. One person installs the engine. Another puts on the wheels. Another paints the body. Each person becomes an expert at their specific function, and the result is a high-quality car, built efficiently and predictably. Aaron realized that most sales teams were structured like that, one person trying to build a whole car. Salespeople were expected to do everything: find new leads, qualify them, give demos, write proposals, close deals, and even manage the customer afterward. They were jacks of all trades and masters of none. This, he argued, is the biggest killer of sales productivity. So he proposed a radical idea: break the sales process down into specialized roles, just like an assembly line. He created 4 core sales functions. First, you have the market response reps. These are the qualifiers. Their only job is to handle inbound leads, the people who come to you by filling out a form on your website or calling your 800 number. They sift through these incoming inquiries to see who is a good fit and who isn't, passing the good ones along. They are the gatekeepers for what the book calls nets, the leads you catch with wide net marketing programs. Second, you have the sales development reps, or SDRs. These are the prospectors, the hunters. This is the cold calling 2.0 team. Their job, and their only job, is to proactively prospect into cold accounts where you have no existing relationship. They use the mass email referral system to generate new qualified opportunities from scratch. They don't close deals. They don't handle inbound leads. They just hunt. They are the ones who throw the spears. Third, you have the account executives. These are your traditional closers. They are the highly skilled, often highly paid salespeople whose only focus is on working the qualified opportunities that are handed to them by the first two teams. They don't have to waste their time prospecting or qualifying low-quality leads. They spend all their time on what they do best, building relationships and closing deals. And finally, you have the fourth role, account management or customer success. These are the farmers. After a deal is closed, their job is to make sure the customer is successful and happy. In a world of what the author calls frictionless karma, where a bad customer experience can spread online instantly, this role is more important than ever. Happy customers become your best source of new leads, what the book calls seeds. They create referrals, write testimonials, and build your reputation through word of mouth. This specialization is the architecture of the sales machine. Each part has a distinct and focused function, and together, they create a smooth, predictable flow. At Salesforce.com, they learned this the hard way. At one point, they tried combining the inbound and outbound roles into one team. Within a week, productivity dropped by 30%. They quickly switched it back, and the results returned. The lesson was crystal clear. Specialize, specialize, specialize. So once you have this structure in place, how does the SDR team, the Cold Calling 2.0 team, actually execute? The book lays out a clear, 5-step process. Step 1. Get clear on your ideal customer profile. This is the single most important first step. You have to know exactly who you're targeting. If you're selling to everyone, you're selling to no one. You need to define, with laser-like focus, the characteristics of your very best customers. What industry are they in? How big are they? What problems do they have that you are uniquely positioned to solve? This profile becomes your GPS. Without it, all your efforts are just guesswork. Step 2. Build your list. Once you know who you're looking for, you need to build a targeted list of those companies and the key contacts within them. The book suggests using services like Jigsaw or OneSource, but the key is quality over quantity. A small, highly targeted list of perfect fit prospects is infinitely more valuable than a massive list of random names. Step 3. Run outbound email campaigns. This is where the Cold Calling 2.0 magic happens. The SDRs send out those short, sweet referral emails in small, regular batches, maybe 50 to 100 a day. The goal isn't to get a massive number of responses at once. The goal is to get a steady, manageable flow of 5 to 10 responses each day. If you get too many, you'll start dropping the ball. The key is consistency, creating a predictable trickle of new conversations. Step 4. Sell the dream. When a prospect responds, either with a referral or with interest themselves, the next step isn't to launch into a product pitch. The goal is to have a discovery conversation, to ask questions, to listen, to understand their business, their challenges, and their goals. Your job is to help them paint a picture, a vision of a better future, and only then do you connect your solution to that dream. You're not a product pusher. You're a problem solver and a vision builder. Step 5. Pass the baton. Once the SDR has qualified the opportunity and confirmed there's a real potential fit, they pass the baton to an account executive. This handoff has to be seamless. The best way is a hot transfer, where you get the prospect and the account executive on the phone together right then and there. The crucial rule here is that the SDR doesn't get credit or commission until the account executive has their own follow-up conversation and requalifies the lead themselves. This ensures that the SDRs are only passing over high-quality opportunities and not just trying to hit a quota for appointment set. This keeps everyone honest and focused on real results. This 5-step process is the engine of predictable revenue. And when you track the numbers at each stage, how many emails you send, your response rate, your conversion rate from response to qualified opportunity, and your close rate, you can start to predict the future. You can know, with a high degree of accuracy, that if you hire a new SDR, they will generate a specific amount of new pipeline within a certain number of months, which will lead to a predictable amount of new revenue. The guesswork is gone. You now have a faucet you can turn on and off to control the flow of new business. But the book goes deeper than just the system. It talks about the art of the conversation itself, sharing timeless wisdom that any person can use, whether in sales or just in life. One of my favorite pieces of advice is about the single best question you can ever use to open a call with someone you don't know well. It's not, "How are you today?" or "Is this a good time?" which almost always gets a no. The question is, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" It's a small change, but it's incredibly powerful. It shows respect for their time. It lowers their defenses. It's polite and disarming. More often than not, the person will say, "It's a bit busy, but I have a minute. What's up?" And just like that, you've earned a conversation instead of forcing one. Another key idea is to obsess about the decision-making process, not just the decision-maker. In the old days, sales was all about getting to the top dog, the person who signs the checks. But today, decisions are rarely made by one person in a vacuum. They're made by teams. So instead of asking who's the decision-maker, you should ask, how does your team typically evaluate a solution like this? Understanding the entire process and winning over the influencers and users is often more important than getting a 15-minute meeting with the CEO. And finally, the book challenges us to change our entire mindset around selling. The old model, ABC, or always be closing, is dead. That high-pressure, fear-driven approach just doesn't work with modern, educated buyers. The new model is about selling to success. It's about genuinely caring about the customer's outcome. It's about creating a success plan with them before you even talk about closing the deal, painting a picture of what life will look like for them after they become a customer and are achieving their goals. When you do that, closing the deal isn't an artificial high-pressure event. It becomes the natural, logical next step in achieving the vision you've built together. The book wraps up by zooming out to the leadership level, highlighting the fatal mistakes that CEOs and sales VPs make. They assume channels will sell for them. They fumble hiring and training. They think product out instead of customer in. But the biggest mistake of all is command and control management. The author argues that great leaders don't just tell people what to do. They create self-managing systems where employees are empowered to think like mini CEOs. They use tools like Salesforce.com's V2MOM process, vision, values, methods, obstacles, and metrics to align the entire company around a shared purpose, giving people the freedom and responsibility to find the best way to get there. At its heart, predictable revenue is more than a sales manual. It's a blueprint for building a resilient, scalable, and, most importantly, predictable business. It's a story about how one person's painful failure led to a discovery that transformed an industry, and how the principles of that discovery can free you from the stressful, chaotic world of guesswork, and give you the peace of mind that comes from knowing, not just hoping, where your future growth will come from. As we step back and look at the ideas in predictable revenue, it's clear that this book's influence goes far beyond just the world of sales. At its core, it's a book about systems thinking. It's about taking something that feels chaotic, emotional, and unpredictable, like sales, and turning it into a calm, logical, and repeatable process. It teaches us that freedom and creativity don't come from a lack of structure. They come from having the right structure in place. When you have a predictable engine generating your results, it frees you up to focus on the bigger, more creative work of innovation and making your customers truly successful. The most powerful lesson for me, and one that applies to anyone, no matter your age or career path, is the principle of specialization. We live in a world that often encourages us to be generalists, to multitask, to wear a dozen hats at once. But this book is a powerful reminder that true mastery and efficiency come from focus. By breaking a complex process down into its core functions and allowing people to become experts in one specific area, you unlock a level of performance that is impossible to achieve when everyone is trying to do everything. Whether you're building a business, managing a school project, or even organizing your own life, asking what are the core functions here and how can I specialize my effort is an incredibly powerful question. The second profound takeaway is the shift in mindset from pushing to pulling. The old way of selling, and frankly the old way of trying to convince anyone of anything, was about pushing your agenda. The cold calling 2.0 method is the exact opposite. It's about respectfully asking for a connection, listening to understand, and co-creating a vision that pulls the other person forward. It's a philosophy built on empathy and respect, and it's a far more effective and enjoyable way to interact with the world. So how can you start applying these ideas right now, in a simple and practical way? Here are a few things to try. First, for the next week, just observe. Look at your own work, whether it's schoolwork, a part-time job, or a personal project. Where are you trying to do too many different things at once? Identify just one area where you're switching between different types of tasks, like research, writing, and editing. Try dedicating a specific block of time to do only one of those things. See how it changes your focus and your output. This is your first small experiment with specialization. Second, practice the art of the referral. Think of someone you'd like to connect with, maybe for career advice or an informational interview. Instead of emailing them directly, find someone you both know, or someone in their organization, and write a short, sweet email asking for an introduction. Don't sell yourself. Just politely explain why you'd like to connect, and ask if they'd be willing to make the connection. You'll be amazed at how this warm approach changes the dynamic. Finally, try the magic question. The next time you call a friend or family member unexpectedly, open the conversation with, "Hey, did I catch you at a bad time?" Watch how it immediately puts them at ease and shows that you respect their time. It's a small habit that can fundamentally change the quality of your daily interactions. That was a summary of Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross and Marilou Tyler. We've explored the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only take you so far. The real magic happens when you hold the book in your hands and let the details sink in. It's in the specific email templates, the sample dashboards, and the deep dive case studies that the system truly comes to life. This summary is designed to be your map, to show you the destination and the main roads to get there. If anything we've discussed today has sparked a curiosity in you, if you've felt that pull towards creating more predictability in your own life or work, then I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's about building a machine that can power your ambitions for years to come. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to click that subscribe button. Each week, we dive into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf, uncovering the ideas that shape our world. By subscribing, you're not just getting more summaries, you're joining a community dedicated to lifelong learning. Let's keep growing together.